Right, good evening everyone. So today we're going to have an in-depth look at Ayaka's C1 constellation. A lot of people describe it as lackluster, but there is quite a lot of little detail in it, and hopefully we can uncover it. And we'll be doing a frame-by-frame count. If you don't know what it does, then just a quick recap. A normal and charge attacks deal crowd damage, and it's got a 50% chance of decreasing the cooldown on your E ability by 0.3 seconds. So E ability has about a 10-second cooldown. And of course, to prevent you from, if you hit multiple opponents, this thing's got its own internal cooldown of 0.1 seconds, which is pretty logical. So the big thing that I always ask myself is, with any cooldown reducing sort of constellation, the big question is, how can we trigger it? And if we can trigger it, what's the optimal way in which we can do it? So for me, it's just about what are the attack patterns, and then is there anything else we can do? So hopefully you can see it in this first clip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the moment I press the right button here, we are going to cast our elemental skill, and you can see there it goes. There the cooldown time starts, and Ayaka's going to go. She's going to finish her animation, and she's going to start attacking at about 8.2 seconds. So that's about a 1.8 second delay. It's quite long, but we'll see if we can reduce this. And now of course we're going to hit, there we go, the first time we've triggered it, we reduce the cooldown. If you note, the game actually rounds down its numbers, but that's fine. And here we go, there we triggered it again 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and then of course, since we're not applying any cryo, we're not going to trigger it again. And there we go, we effectively reduce about 1.5 seconds worth of our cooldown. But the question is, can we do better? And of course we can. In this next clip, what you'll see is the moment I press right, we're going to do our E, and I don't know if you saw that. So instead of Ayaka standing up, we're going to dodge, or you can see it's like dashing. We get behind our opponent, and the moment the swing, there we go, the swing animation starts. And of course, this is not 8.9, it's like slightly more since the game rounds down, but essentially let's just say you took 1.1 seconds instead of 1.8 to start attacking. And now we're going to try and see how many of these we can get. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, there's 6, there's 7. Immediately you can almost feel like we've already reduced 2.1 seconds off of the clock, and that is just by getting pretty much the same luck that we did previously, but perhaps we got a bit lucky here as well. But since we cancelled out our dash early, we actually had an extra bit of time left for us to have an additional cancellation. And of course we're not going to get anything now because we're doing normal attacks. So this is quite important. I'll link a YouTube video, but you can dash cancel out of Ayaka's E and her charge attacks, and being able to dash cancel out is such an important ability. As you can see here, it just allows you to start attacking way faster. So that's already the first way in which we can optimize this constellation, which is something not a lot of people really know, and I can promise you almost none of the YouTubers actually cover this in the detail we're doing today. So now let's take this a step further. So this is Masanori. I think it's the Nobushi. I might be wrong, but one interesting thing about the Nobushi guys is whenever they put their shield up here, we can actually, even though we're not dealing damage, we can still trigger this cooldowns effect. There we go. You can see we triggered it. And I'm just going to play it out here. And of course on a charge attack we can trigger it, which is really, really nice. So even though we're not dealing any damage, and of course we can just dash around him and hit him at the back, we can still reduce our cooldown. This also applies to shields, by the way, if you didn't know. So there is really no excuse not to be trying to, for you not to be able to optimize reducing this cooldown. Unless of course you play a quick swap and you don't want Ayaka on the field, but particularly if you want to try and play a bit more solo or as like a hyper carry, reducing her cooldown or the techniques behind this is so essential. So yeah, this is quite cool. And then I've actually got one last thing as well, and this really goes into a lot of depth. So as you can see, my cooldown time here is at 4.2. What I've just done is I've just dealt a normal slash, there it connects, and we didn't trigger anything, that's fine. So what's now going to happen is we're getting into our charge attack stance, and the animation is going to go off. But the moment the number appears, which should be, there we go, right there. The moment that number appears, you can see where the cooldown starts. And this will be, I'm just going to count the frames, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, generally about 6, and then you have 100 milliseconds that have passed. So obviously Ayaka's charge attack does 3 slashes, and they're all about within 100 milliseconds of each other. So in this case, the first one can trigger it, the second one cannot. And now we're just going to see there's the second one. Of course, this wasn't a critical hit, but that's okay. And there we go. On the third one, you can see we also triggered the cooldown. So I'm just going to take this slowly again. On the first hit, we triggered the cooldown. The moment that 4.49 comes out, we triggered it. We didn't trigger anything on the second slash, the 15k. And then the moment, there we go. The moment the other one pops up, you can see we triggered the cooldown again. So essentially her charge attack can proc this about twice, which is also really good. So this does tell you that indeed the most optimal way would be 4 normal attacks and leading into a charge attack, a quick dash and repeat. And that'll probably give you the highest chance of being able to reduce this cooldown. So hopefully that gives you a bit of detail. Her cooldown is really powerful. I think the most I've hit with it was about at 60k. I think when it was raining or something like that. But you can do a lot of damage, a lot of supplemental damage, especially now if you've got an Ayaka at C6 that charges up at charge attacks. If you interlace these two cooldowns, in other words, when the one's down, the other one's active, you get a very nice combination of high sustained DPS. So yeah, Ayaka is a very technical character, and I've said from the beginning she's the most technical character MiHoYo has brought out, and hopefully this really in-depth review sort of tells you sort of how to play with her, what's optimal, and for you to just go and learn how to dash cancel. It is probably the most important ability. Not only do you iframe, but you can also optimize your cooldowns if you've got your Ayaka at C1. Cheers.